We're now going to be starting the webinar, but I'd first like to introduce Julia Ray, who is our Program Services Manager and has been with Disabled Sports USA for over 8 years. And she will introduce our speaker and also give you a little bit of detail on the webinar. Julia, do you want to take over?
I will. Thank you, Kirk. And just to echo Kirk's comments, I want to thank everybody for their commitment to taking part in this call today. The importance of this topic today. We feel very grateful that we've got an expert on the line, Marla Knox. She's with the Naval Medical Center San Diego and is the Balboa Warrior Athlete Manager and Recreation Therapist, and definitely has a great deal of expertise in working with patients with combat stress, and hopefully will provide a lot of applicable examples to those on the call today. So thank you, Marla, for taking the time to do this. So with that, I'm going to let Marla take it from here.
I want to thank you, Julia, Kirk, everyone at DSUSA for giving me this opportunity. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I just want to tell you a little bit about my background. I am a rec therapist at Naval Medical Center San Diego, but my career before that was I have 20 years working with the city of San Diego. So I worked in a municipality setting with adaptive sports, primarily persons with physical disabilities. And then I started a nonprofit, San Diego Adaptive Sports Foundation, which was a chapter of DSUSA. And now I'm in a hospital setting. But I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's important that you know that I have a diverse background, that hopefully the information I'm going to present will be applicable to your organization or your facility. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll say next. Okay, so the goals of this session are simple. I can read it, but basically it's to bridge the communication gap between various military commands, whether it's a hospital setting, a VA, satellite unit, whatever it could be, and our great community partners such as yourselves. And it's also important that if anybody from the military is online, that the commands, the chain of commands have an understanding and understanding and support what therapeutic recreation is doing, whether it's in the hospital setting or community-based programming. We also want, rec therapy is a very, very new intervention to Department of Defense, not so much the VA. I work with the Department of Defense, and that's the Naval Medical Center. We are not a VA entity. So it's really important that we're trying to get more rec therapists, a better understanding of why you guys do what you do and how it benefits our patients. And also, what many of you probably are experiencing is a lack of access to the DoD, OEF, OIF population. So we're trying to, by working together, increase the numbers of ill, injured, and wounded troops involved in community-based rehab recreation activities. Next, please. Okay. I think we skipped one, but that's okay. So things that are really important for you guys to understand and be aware of, there is a difference between active duty and veterans. Many people use the word veterans. All the patients I work with are active duty still, even those that have amputations, triple amputees, and whatnot. More than likely, they're going to go through the med board process, and of the people we serve, only maybe 11% stay in. But they are not veterans yet, coming from a hospital setting, so that's really important that you understand that. Knowing the service branches is very important as well. When I was at San Diego Adaptive Sports Foundation, we called everybody soldiers. Well, guess what? Marines don't want to be called soldiers, and Navy sailors don't want to be called Marines. It's really important that you get that, and when you title your programs as such, that is something that you should just be mindful of. Really, really important on the third one, you have to look at your registration form. What you have in place currently might be for a different population. It might not include anything about individuals with PTSD. Are you asking questions that pertain to that population? Or is it the same old application for persons with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, autism, spinal cord injuries? That's a huge thing that can make a big change initially. So definitely take a look at that. And we have some examples that Julia can share with you in the future. all our patients are patients. They're not inpatients, they're outpatients, but they still have to get medically and ethically cleared. The medical clearance for Naval Medical Center comes from all their providers. So if they see physical therapy, occupational therapy, vestibular, physiatry, prosthetics, they have to get a signature from every provider. And what the clearance does is it lists the activities in which they'll be involved with, and then they're cleared for that, or with restrictions, or so on and so forth. So when you're communicating with an organization or a military organization, please make sure you list all the activities, even if you think it's not a big deal. If you throw bowling on the night before and they're not medically cleared, they probably won't be able to do it, but that's the kind of thing you need to be aware of. Ethics clearance is through legal and gift fund. So oftentimes we can't just accept a gift of a ski trip, if you will. We have to have a proper letter that describes the activity, the amount the activity costs, and that has to go through gift fund, and we have to get accepted. The gift has to be accepted in order for our patients and staff to participate. So we have examples of that as well. Julia has examples of that. It's really important that you work with hospital or facility staff. Now, some people work with the military staff, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they don't really align with the patient's rehab goals. And oftentimes they aren't going through the process correctly, and then at the last minute those patients aren't able to go. So if at all possible, I would definitely try to work with a therapeutic staff member, a clinician of some type in the program that the patients are enrolled in. It's really important that as you work through with the staff that you're able to understand what the problems that individual is having, and that might not come from a military member, or staff sergeant or sergeant, because they're not looking. They don't have a medical background. So don't assume that just because they're the section leader or the staff sergeant, they know all the ins and outs, medically speaking, of that particular patient. That's where a clinician really comes in handy. And from a liability standpoint, that's really important. We consider you as part of our rehab team. So as they continue and progress to attend a ski trip or whatever the activity might be, I very much look at the outside organization as a partner to the patient's rehab progress. And so know that, and working hand in hand with you is very important to the team. And therefore, that clinician can discuss what the patient's rehab goals are. And that's really important, because you might offer an activity, and if you don't work with that clinician, why are you offering that activity? Are you offering it just to offer ski trip? For me, we're an adaptive ski trip to somebody who's bilateral amputee. Part of their rehab goal is to learn a new activity they enjoyed prior to injury, or learn a new adaptive activity for the first time. So it's important that as you plan your activities that you're considering the patient population and the rehab goals. The second to the last one, not everyone is injured in combat. That's a huge misconception in civilian world, and I was guilty of that before I came to the hospital. Operation Enduring Freedom is OEF, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Freedom is Afghanistan, and Iraqi Freedom is Iraq. So don't assume everyone, even another amputee, is combat injured. An amputee could be resulting in a motorcycle accident, a motor vehicle accident, so on and so forth. So make sure when you're creating your programs that you're very specific with the staff member at the military site. Do you want just combat injured? Is that what your sponsor dollars are asking for? Will you accept other ill, injured, and wounded? And what I mean by that, when we break that down, ill, someone can have cancer, bone cancer, and be, an amputee. Someone that's injured can be injured in a motorcycle accident, a fall, that type of thing that is not combat injured. And wounded, whether it's physical or invisible, are those injuries incurred in combat-related experiences. So please know that and be very specific, because I know with your sponsor dollars, you need to kind of fill those grants up accordingly, and when you write your follow-up grant information, that you have to be very clear with the staff at the military site as well. And just know, the last one, military, is an entirely different animal. And I say that because I had to learn that. There's a lot of red tape involved. There's a lot of different people. You might work with one staff member 1 year, and they're gone because they're deployed or they're moved somewhere else. And so just know that. You have to be patient. You have to be flexible, and just know that there's so much red tape. But if we work together and communicate well, we can get past this. Next, please. Okay, this might be redundant for the fellow rec therapists online, but it's really important because, like I said, rec therapy was very new coming into the Department of Defense. There's probably just a handful that I'm aware of that are not associated with the VA, maybe less than 10. But for those that, you can read this, but I'll just, oopsie, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. It's very specialized. And for us at Naval Medical Center, recreation therapy falls under the same umbrella as physical rehabilitation medicine. So it's just as important as physical therapy, occupational therapy, physiatry, which is rehab medicine, so on and so forth. So we use it as a source of intervention treatment to help a patient from a physical standpoint and a psychosocial standpoint and emotional standpoint. And we cover really all aspects of really what it means to be, a functioning human being. So it promotes growth and development, and it really focuses on enhancing the quality of life of an individual. So if you think about it, somebody that's a bilateral amputee, their main focus is going to be mobility. From they're in a wheelchair first, they get their prosthetic limbs, they get their walking legs, and maybe even their running legs. But what are they going to do with that? Is it all in life? Is it just to walk? Well, maybe they want to climb a peak in Argentina that's 19,000 feet, and they need to learn how to do that. That's recreation. They need to ski. They want to ski again or snowboard again. That's recreation. So all of that it enhances quality of life. We just go. I'll talk more as we go into the different slides. Let's go next, please. Okay, so what we do here is we use treatment, education, and services to help people with all sorts of illness, injury, and wounds. And we really try to promote from where they might need mild assistance here in an outpatient setting to functional independence, where they don't need us. We don't want any of the patients to need us. So we try to promote basic information of it, like for instance, DSUSA as a community-based resource that they can utilize post-discharge as an outpatient. Adaptive equipment, so monoskis, 3-tracking, outriggers, those type of things that maybe they can get on their own through Challenge Athletes Foundation or Engine Marine Semper Fi Fund. That type of thing that will help get them to an independent level. Some will use it recreationally, and others will be competitive athletes. So that's why we do what we do in recreation therapy. And it's done usually in a one-on-one treatment intervention or group setting. Now, because I have over 200 patients here at Naval Medical Center, most of our activities are done, most of our treatment intervention activities are done in group setting. And that works out really well, but for those that are more involved in their injuries, like triple amputees, so on and so forth, sometimes we have to do one-on-one, which is okay as well. Next. Okay, so it's really important, and I did this because I didn't want people to think we were just fun and games. We take our intervention very seriously. It's a 4-year degree, Bachelor of Science degree. Most rec therapists have to be nationally certified by the NCTRC, which is National Council for Therapeutic Recreation Certification. We are part of the rehab team, again, not just for fun and games. And that's something that if anybody's listening to this that's in the military, that's an uphill battle all the way. But if you kind of break it down into a physical, social, and psychosocial standpoint, they get it. But there's so many people to educate. For me, I get a consult from a physician, a clinician, if you will, from a psychologist, a physiatrist, which is a rehab doc, a case manager, a social worker. So they get referrals over here to us. And sometimes people walk in for their appointments because they hear a word of mouth how great it is, and they want to be a part of it. And we, like I said, serve several hundred individuals here at the hospital. an appointment is made for the initial assessment, and that usually takes about 30 minutes. And then from there, average, I don't know, here at the hospital, we average probably about 15 assessments, new assessments a week. And I can tell you that patient rotation is very different than any other physical rehab because the patients stay here anywhere from a year to 2 years. So they don't live here per se the whole time, but they're here a long time. So what the picture I'm trying to present is that we have more coming in than we have being discharged. So it's getting greater and greater all the time. Next, please. Okay. So how the process here works, and it's really important you understand how it works here, that we take it very seriously, and hopefully you'll understand how it works with you guys as our partners. We try to identify the deficits and barriers to participation in the assessment. So for instance, if somebody comes in that is a recent amputee, they say, well, gosh, I used to snowboard all the time. Well, what's the deficit? Well, the deficit is they don't have legs anymore. So how are we going to get them to that again? Maybe they will never be there, but what else can we provide them, present them, that they can continue their love of boarding or skiing or whatever the case might be. We establish goals and objectives relating to their physical, psychosocial, emotional, community reintegration goals. Everyone has to have a medical clearance to participate in our ongoing sports rec therapy treatment, otherwise because of liability. And again, all the providers have to sign on that. For special events like snowboard trips, DSUSA sponsored activities, that is a separate clearance, and all the providers have to sign off for that as well. The assessment is scanned into the patient's chart. So that's really important for you guys to know as well. So when we come to ski spec in Breckenridge in December, we chart on that. We chart on how the patients did, where the baseline was, and what they progressed to. So when you get a rec therapist or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist that come up to you as an instructor, and we say, how did Joe do? You know, from the first, or say, I'm going to ask you how Joe does the whole week. It's not just because we don't trust you. It's because we want to know how Joe did. We want to see progress, and we want to know from your expertise, you know, how we did. So that's, again, how you guys can be a part of our team. And that's fine. Go next. That's good. Okay, so I have to tell you up front is PTSD is something that is so prevalent. You will see more and more and more and more individuals with PTSD. They might not just have PTSD. They could be an amputee with PTSD. It could be an individual with a traumatic brain injury and have PTSD. And I would say of the several hundred patients that we serve here, a majority have PTSD. So I'll just kind of read this. It is a psychiatric disorder that usually occurs after an experience or witnessing of life-threatening event. And as you can imagine, in this population, especially OEF, OIF, there's many life-threatening events or horrific events that are incurred. And it's just the truth. It could be from seeing a buddy be killed, somebody dying in their arms. You know, can you imagine being with somebody every day, and then one day you wake up and you go out, you know, on a whatever you want to say, a convoy or whatever, and then they're killed by that evening. So these are things that are very real, and there's many types of PTSD. There can be PTSD relating to a car accident. There can be PTSD relating to something else, but combat-related PTSD is something very, very different. And that's really important that as you guys consider your populations that you offer programming to, you need to be very specific about that. And because one of the things with some of the patients that we get is there seems to be almost a discrimination of the different types of PTSD. So if somebody says, yeah, I had PTSD because I was in a car accident, well, that can be very true for that person, but it's not the same type of PTSD. And believe me, they will kind of weed people out. They'll know. So that's something you should just have in the back of your mind. Next, please. Okay, so kind of getting the meat and potatoes things, kind of things that are a little bit more exciting. This type of diagnosis is a diagnosis for a lifetime. It is not going to be cured overnight, and it is something that they will have the rest of their life. The degree of severity will hopefully diminish in time, but right now the way that OEF and OIF is, they're pretty much in the trenches of it. And we won't see maybe a diminishing of some of the behaviors or characteristics of it until time passes. Any diagnosis, any injury, any disability, as you know, affects the patient, their family, and loved ones. So one of the things we really try to promote is, as you're providing wonderful programming, is to really consider offering a guest spot. And that is so important just from the family standpoint and from the patient standpoint. So if you could work it out in your sponsorship, that would be wonderful. They are invisibly wounded. We'll get into more of that. A lot of times it's easy for those individuals to, I'm sorry, you guys have, somebody is being loud at my door. I have to tell them to be quiet. Sorry about that. They are invisibly wounded. Sometimes people will say, well, you're not an amputee. What's wrong with you? So know that being invisibly wounded is really it's very tough for them. And sometimes they'll say, I wish I had an amputation so people know I am wounded. It can be a dual diagnosis. We already talked about that with TBI, limb salvage, amputation, so on and so forth. So just know that as well. Next, please. Okay, so let's talk about the behaviors and feelings that create barriers to participation. So with PTSD, there's a lot of isolation and withdrawal. So what happens is there's an inability to function in their everyday life with their family, with even their children, their wives, their brothers, their sisters, their mother, their father, and their ability to be employed. So we'll use the word Joe again, or the person Joe. Joe comes back from Afghanistan. Well, he's physically functional, but it's not Joe anymore. And there's definitely the family members notice this, co-workers notice this, and that's really important. Just because they come back whole doesn't mean that they don't have a diagnosis. They're very disengaged. There's decreased feelings of attachment. We had a guy come in today, his grandfather who raised him died this weekend, and he was just telling me that he can't cry. He knows he should, but he has no feelings for it, and that is very real. So feelings of detachment is really, it's very true. Isolation, we talked about this. If they can get out of their houses, get out of their rooms, that would be amazing. And depression is also a barrier to participation. They often relive their experiences through nightmares and flashbacks. And it's not that they're going to go crazy during these flashbacks, and hopefully you build a rapport with them. Hopefully when they're on a week-long ski trip or something like that, they'll share that with you. You know, it could be the way that the mountains are in Sun Valley, Idaho. That actually happened on a trip last year with the Wood River Ability Program, and one of the corpsmen said, wow, I had a flashback to Afghanistan because of the way the mountains were. So is that good or bad? I don't know. It is what it is. Nightmares are very, very real to them, and that's why we'll talk about the lack of sleep. They do not sleep, and I don't know how they function, but they don't want to. They just can't fall asleep, and part of that is because they don't want to have nightmares. So know that as well. If they come into your program looking haggard and tired, well, they probably are, and they probably didn't get any sleep. Feelings of worthlessness, they don't deserve to go on a ski trip, or they don't deserve to have fun because they survived. And that might be a reason for them to try to back out at the last minute, so you need to know that. Feelings of demasculization, I'm not a man anymore, you know, and that's hard because they were here. Well, what happens is that they were in combat, and they come back and they're sitting at a desk job, or, you know, there's feelings of fear, and it takes away their feelings of their manhood. And so just know that as well. There's a huge loss of camaraderie when they come back from Iraq or Afghanistan. They were in a very close-knit, very intense combat experiences, And so they come back, and especially if they have PTSD, they're separate from their unit. And they no longer have a brotherhood, so there's nothing to belong to. And this also affects their ability to participate in treatment-based activities. The last one here is so important. Hypervigilance. What they're doing is they're evaluating the threats. If you take them out to a restaurant at night, it's going to be very difficult for them. Hopefully they'll be able to attend, but what they're going to do is they're going to walk in that restaurant, they're going to evaluate who is the threat. Who is the threat or where the threat can come from. And then they're going to determine where they're going to sit. Usually they're back to the wall looking at the entry and the exit points. So they know what determining the evacuation plan. How are they going to get out? What can they use if something goes down? Can they use that fork? Can they use that chair to get out and get others out, you know, if it's their family or whatnot? And you might think yeah, right, but it's so true. So for as an example, if you do take somebody out or there's a banquet or whatever the case might be, I always let the guys, you know, you sit down first, or I just didn't even say it, I just let it happen. And then they pick their spot, and then I sit down. So you might want to think about that as well. Okay, next. Okay, they are a very impatient group. So know this and plan accordingly. If you are redundant, if you're repetitious, if there's a long waiting period, especially if they're hypervigilant, they're going to say, you know, forget you guys, I'm out of here. So know that. They're just a very impatient group. There's a lot of anxiety relating to crowds and new situations, new environments. So there's always a fight or flight sense to them. So they're going to be ready for something going down, or they're going to get the heck out of there. So know that as well. There are aggression, anger outbursts. But I mean by this, I was talking to one of my patients about it, and it's not like they're going to go off and they're going to get crazy or anything like that. It's usually, if there's an outburst, it's relating to that situation. So if somebody, some well-meaning volunteer in your program says to Joe, are you all right? Joe, that volunteer knows that Joe has PTSD and Joe's kind of distracted or distant. If that volunteer keeps saying, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you want to do this, Joe? Do you want to do this? That might set Joe off. So just know that, you know, to back them off, educate your volunteers, that type of thing. We already talked about emotional detachment. One of the things you might really want to pick up on is what we call it the 1,000-yard stare. So, and that's probably relating to their coping mechanism. The environment around them might be too intense, if you will, even though it might not be intense to you. So what they're doing is they're phasing out, or they're on some good medication, and they just are staring off and trying to focus on one thing. So again, it's not that it's a bad thing, just be aware of it. They're nervous and fidgety. You can tell by their legs are going all the time. Their eyes are darting everywhere. Their knees bouncing. They have poor body language, that type of thing. So be aware of that. That can trigger you that there's anxiety and how they're feeling. A lot of them are very teary. They're very teary because they hate being this way. They know they're not the same person as before they were deployed, and if you find that they are crying, you know, just give them some space and respect, and let them cry and let them know that if you can do anything or that you're there for them, that would be good. There's a huge lack of trust, especially with civilians, that, you know, it took me a while for them to trust me, but they do, I think majority of them do. And trust is built on sincerity and not, you know, giving them a bunch of hooey or false promises. So if you're straight with them, they're gonna build rapport and trust with you. So try to work on that, especially in those programs that are offering extended types of programming. That would be good. Next, please. Okay, this one is really important. Fear of crowded areas. That is so important. So this is where you have to evaluate. You know, you might think it might be great to take them to a college game or a football game or something that, you know, and you have them in the center of the field because you want to show appreciation and the community wants to show appreciation. You have to ask yourself, who is that for? Is that for your agency, or is that the best interest of the patient or the service member? And I have to tell you, especially with PTSD, they do not like crowded areas. So as you're planning your trips, and especially for individuals with PTSD, either do not put them on stage or in the center of something where they feel exposed to threats, or make sure that you allow them to opt out if they do not feel comfortable. That's a big thing with us at Naval Medical Center, and we let the partners know that, you know, if you don't have an out for us, then we probably won't send that patient, or maybe even as a facility not attend. So please be aware of that. If you can do a site visit ahead of time and think about that activity and what the crowd situation is going to be like, we call it a recon, that would be helpful too. And try to put yourself in the mind frame of that patient with PTSD or that service member with PTSD. Reaction to loud noises, startle reflex. I'll use the example of we were at the Ski to Sea with Julia this last May, and it was a great event. The kickoff to the event was a dynamite blast. I guess I don't know if it's to start an avalanche or what, but even though they told us there was going to be a blast, the snowboarder guy jumped like a foot because it was a loud noise, and you can imagine why do they have startle reflex problems? Well, they're so used to blast injuries, they're so used to gunshots, they're so used to all of that, and it kind of, that's like a little flashback that they go into protection mode. So when you're offering your activities, if you know there's going to be a shotgun start to something or an explosive start to something or fireworks, let them know ahead of time, and so they can better prepare, and when that might take place in the program. We talked about flashbacks, sleeping patterns. Feelings of guilt is really, really is important as well because it affects them every day. Guilt in that they don't feel like they can provide for their family. Guilt that survivor guilt that they made it back. Corpsmen feel terrible. Well, terrible is even not the right word. They feel a horrible sense of guilt for those that they didn't save. And I know they did their very best, but for them, they live every day beating themselves up for not saving the people they thought they should save. And they don't feel like they should have fun. So to encourage them to attend a program, a community-based program, is a big deal. And if we can get them there, that's even better. So know that feelings of survivor guilt or guilt is tremendous. They try to diminish their demons, if you will, by using alcohol or substance abuse. And for us, because there's a urine test, you know, for drugs, it's not so much drugs until they get out as veterans, but a lot of alcohol abuse. So we try not to have the outside partner offer free alcohol. Every agency is different as far as the SOP or the MOU for alcohol. But even though you might have some great sponsors providing beer and whatnot, try not to have a free-flowing, all-you-can-drink type of thing, because some of these guys are on meds and they shouldn't be mixing their strong meds with alcohol, and some of them are alcoholics or in recovery. And then therefore, if they are in recovery, sometimes they pick up addictive behaviors like being on the internet, porn sites, gambling, that type of thing. So having a trip to the casino might not be the best rehab goal either. So one of the things in rec therapy that's really important is we realize that there is definitely an inability to enjoy activities they once enjoyed prior to diagnosis. So again, we're trying to reconnect them to activities that you all offer. And one of the things you all might have already experienced is a failure to show up for activities. You might be working with an agency and you want 5 or 10 people to come to your program, your great program, and you have 5 to 10 signed up, and at the last minute, half of them don't show up. That's very common with individuals with PTSD, unless you're working with a clinician, and there's a sense of trust between that clinician and the patients. So know that's common. I hope when you guys are listening to this that you're not shaking your head and saying, yeah, that's us. I'm hoping it's getting better because we're working more as a team, those that are inside the hospital or DOD and those, or VA, and those that are in the community such as you all. Next, please. Okay, so let's talk about the therapy goals. And you guys can use this in your planning as well. This is just from a therapeutic recreation. So what we want to do, and you should think about this in your programming, is increase socialization opportunities, build relationships, especially with other combat-injured peers. So some of you that are offering just combat-injured activities, it's really good because those patients with PTSD know that those guys, the other combat-injured peers, are hypervigilant. They are looking out for each other, that type of thing. So they're meeting new people. They might be meeting some of your volunteers and staff, and you're making that connection. So that's very important because if you're isolated, you're not increasing any socialization. It's actually leading to isolation. Community reintegration, again, to get away from isolating themselves at home or drinking excessively. We want them to re-engage back into society. And if it's using the medium of sports and recreation through you fine folks, that's what we want to do. What happens here is when somebody is discharged from the hospital, we, as a discharge type of activity, we have them fill out the DSUSA form, and then we send that into the national chapter, and they disseminate as appropriate. But we're hoping that the relationship is built with each of your chapters, and that you will ask them to join you with other military type of activities as they leave, but they'll have you as a point of reference, and that helps build community reintegration. We also are working on increasing comfort level in crowds and community settings, working with civilians. We talked about learning new forms of recreation, sports, leisure, etc., and relearn or reconnecting to activities they enjoyed prior to diagnosis. Next. Okay, I talked about that. Increasing strength and endurance, finding quality of life, decreasing stress and anxiety, and feelings of suicide. I had a guy come in today that he thinks it'd be better if he was dead, and he has 3 little boys under the age of 5. So feelings of suicide, worthlessness, very, very common. Next. Okay, so how you guys can help improve or strengthen your programs is to pass this information on to your volunteers. I know you have staff there, and I know you guys use volunteers. Really important that you pass this information on so they know how to best work with this population. Again, do involve family members and friends when you can. Work really hard to build that real sense of trust and rapport with these individuals. They're very good at pulling out those individuals that are not sincere. So make sure that it's not a fake type of rapport building relationship. I already talked about OEF, OIF type of activities only, and it promotes brotherhood and shared experience. Oftentimes when individuals go and they become veterans, they don't have a connection to the brotherhood anymore, the camaraderie, and what you guys provide helps enhance that. Really, really important just to listen and observe. Everything I've learned, I've listened and observed. The guys have taught me. The guys, for the most part, have taught me. So you can become an expert, too, if you just listen and observe. Next, please. Do your best to intervene if someone, a participant, volunteer, staff member, etc., is having a problem, whether it's the participant anxiety is increasing and they're becoming agitated, or there's a volunteer or somebody that's asking inappropriate questions. So intervene if you see that or observe that. Advocate on behalf of the individual. That's what I do all the time. I always do what's best for the patient, and that's what I'm hoping that all of you come away from, is that you ask yourself, what you're offering, is it best for my agency or for the injured service member? So, and advocate for them if it is based on the service member. Anticipate reactions and environmental changes before they happen. U.S. staff and a person who knows that area, wherever you're skiing or snowboarding, so on and so forth, you know that area. Or if you come to a new program, recon it. Go out and think about, okay, what could stress this population out? What could cause anxiety? And make those changes to diminish that. Tweak your program goals, your existing program goals, to what's best, again, for the patient. I challenge you to do that. I'll give you an example. We have a very extensive hand cycling program here at the hospital. we're actually, the 14 amputees are doing the Marine Corps Marathon on hand cycle this weekend. So they're doing about 40, 50 miles a week. If you have a program with a hand cycle and you don't know the population, what's already the baseline for it, and you say, okay, let's do 2 miles, that's not going to be rewarding to them. So it's a person with an amputation or someone without an amputation in an extensive cycling program, again, know what their baseline level is, and that way you can tweak your program and plan accordingly. And then just know there are other diagnoses and issues, especially with PTSD. Next, please. I always include, when patients or service members bring ideas up, I really seriously consider that. And I make changes based on what they say they want. And I'm hoping that that's the case when you guys do your evaluations, that you are making those changes based on what either the staff says from the DOD or the patients. And sometimes they won't tell you what they didn't like because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but they will tell the staff at the hospital or wherever it might be, the VA. So please know that and try to make those changes. Be honest with them. Don't, without a lack of a better word, don't try to fool them or BS them or anything like that. They're really good at seeing through that. While at activity, if you see them agitated or feeling stressed or anxious, it's okay once in a while to say, how are you doing? Or just watch them. How are you doing? You okay? And they'll probably say yes. And if they say no, that's okay. But don't over-ask them. Every, well-meaning volunteer, every 2 minutes, you're right, you're right, you're right. That will drive them crazy. So just be moderate with it, but be mindful of it. Don't be afraid or hesitant to ask a therapist to align the goals, what their goals are with what your program plan is. And it's always okay to, at any time if they feel uncomfortable or anxious, that they can take a break or leave. Or, a lot of these guys smoke, unfortunately. And that helps decrease their stress and anxiety. Give them a chance to chill out, okay? Otherwise, they won't stay with that program. Next, please. Things that you should also do is, if you know that they might back out at last minute because that's typical of this population, we really want them to communicate with you. I mean, obviously, they go to the hospital, they should communicate with the therapist, but if they're individuals coming in via phone call, text, email, something. We want them responsible, not leave you high and dry, so give them all the contact information to call you. And if for some reason they're a no-show or it's just too much to attend an activity and they back out, let them know that the door is open. I mean, use your best discretion and your best judgment, but a lot of times they'll say, well, I didn't think you wanted me to participate anymore because I didn't show up for the activity. Hey, the door is always open, so you have to evaluate that in your own program, but I'm asking that you just don't shut the door right away if possible. Make your activity challenging and fun. They love it. They don't like to be sit around. They like to get right involved. So if you can do that in your planning, that would be great. And then ask them if, at the end of the week or of Breckenridge Ski Spectacular, maybe that instructor, if they're with them the whole week, how was it this week? Let them, ask for that feedback, and hopefully they'll tell you. With PTSD, it is a roller coaster ride. You think, oh, wow, they had a great couple days, and then the third or fourth day, they're crashing. Don't take it personally. It's just the diagnosis. You don't know what could set them off or what could agitate them. So just anticipate that. Next, please. Another really important one, we talked about challenging and fun. Just getting my happy back, trying to get your happy back. And the name of this presentation I got from one of the patients who was in a tennis program we had. And he said, Marla, I'm not trying to become a pro. I'm just trying to get my happy back. And that was a result from we over-instructed on the tennis. He just wants to hit it, run around, play. If he engages in it at a future date on his own, that's even more bonus. Don't over-instruct an activity. Do the activity just for enjoyment or something to connect to. That's part of this diagnosis. Don't ask them, and this is really important for volunteers as well, don't ask them questions about their combat experience, their injuries, especially invisible injuries. They're there just for the activity. Don't make it about you. Make it about them. They don't want to go into how they got injured or what happens with PTSD. They're there just for the activity. Don't say the wrong things or inappropriate statements. If you have a strong opinion about wars or conflicts, politics, religion, don't say it. It's not the time and place. So stay away from that kind of stuff. And the other thing is sometimes there's an expectation of quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. And what that means is that we're going to give you the ski program and you do something for us. You hold a sponsor banner up. Well, guess what? From the Department of Defense, we cannot fundraise or advertise. So a gift is a gift, and don't expect a quid pro quo, please. Next, please. Don't take their behavior personally. They may be feeling bad, and they may be nasty and just kind of moody. Don't take it personally. Don't walk up behind them or grab them from behind. Why is that? Because they're hypervigilant, and they'll jump, or might swing around and punch people. Don't put them in situations or environments that could trigger negative behavior or anxiety. We talked about the other one. Don't over-encourage them to try the activity. Sometimes it's best to observe so they can kind of check things out ahead of time and know that it's going to be okay. We did the Detroit half marathon with some guys with PTSD, and one of the guys said to me he wished he would have seen the course before he ran it. We couldn't see it because half of it was in Canada. But he says if he knows what the course, he knows what to expect ahead of time. So as much information to this population ahead of time would be great. Don't think they are healed just because they're getting treatment. We talked about it's a lifelong diagnosis. So that's one of the things that one of the guys told me today. People say, oh, I think I'm healed because I'm getting treatment. No. Again, it's lifelong. Next, please. Okay, just a couple other things. We stay away from ranks and activities because we really want people to relax, be comfortable, let their hair down. First names are good. Don't think, especially those that have been in OEF, OIF, or Vietnam, don't think you know what's best for them. Everybody's experience is different. And one of the things that we've run into is somebody will say, well, I was in Afghanistan or I was in Vietnam and I didn't have that happen to me, and this is what I think about it. That's great for what you think, but do not transfer that onto other individuals. Don't make an activity mandatory. If they do, they probably won't show up. Don't push them, over push them when they feel uncomfortable. Don't ever say, even if you were in Iraq or Afghanistan, I know how you feel, because everybody's boots are different. Everybody's experience is different. Don't tell them to suck it up. Sometimes with OEF, OIF, Vietnam vets, they will say, especially high-ranking, they'll just say, oh, just suck it up. We had to suck it up. Well, guess what? That's great for you, but don't put that on my patients. Don't treat them all the same. Every person's experience is unique, and how they're handling things is unique. Don't give them a sales pitch or false promise. If you do this, we're going to, we love you, we're going to build you a house here in Montana. If you can and you have those capabilities, great, but don't make false promises. Next, please. So just some ideas. I know you guys are all more sports and recreation oriented, but these are things that that promote socialization, whether it's board game, team sports, dancing. At Breckenridge, there's dancing at the end, and I think that's great. Activities that promote reintegration. Obviously, everything you all are doing, the ski spec and everything else that people are offering, group outings, volunteerisms, movies, restaurants. Restaurants is a big thing you offer as well. Sometimes activities that promote self-expression, writing, music, acting, painting, and poetry. Not really what you guys offer, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. Next. We've just kind of fallen into the goal-setting type of activities. So we've been doing things like training 6 months for the Marine Corps Marathon. They didn't want to just do it. They want to do it well, and we anticipate these 14 amputees, some with PTSD, to finish in the top third. So we set a goal. We did the Detroit half marathon recently for individuals with PTSD. Goal setting is very, very good. So when it comes to you guys, if you meet some individuals at ski spec and they have their amputee but also have individual PTSD, they might want to take it to the next level. So if that's the case, you can work with a therapist on goal setting. Outdoor activities, they love the outdoors. So what you guys offer is right up the line with this population. So it can be snowboarding, skiing, biathlon, kayaking, canoeing, hunting, surfing, so on and so forth. So think about that. They like thrill and challenge, whether it's skydiving, whitewater rafting, mountain biking, and also activities that promote relaxation and decreases stress and anxiety: yoga, tai chi, qigong, meditation, etc. Next. So for us, this is and for you as well, this is the challenge that we have to overcome. There needs to be a better sense of understanding from their chain of command. Don't think that because we're here at the hospital, there's a tremendous amount of support from their chain of command. Yes, at the hospital, yes, but other patients coming in from other outside entities like Miramar, 32nd Street, Camp Pendleton, there's not a lot of understanding with PTSD or why rec therapy or specialized trip like Breckenridge is really important to their rehabilitation. With this population, there's accusations of malingering or you're just faking it, that type of thing, and that is horrible. And that's something we're trying to battle. And it continues every day. Sometimes we have everything good to go on the application, the med clearance, the airplane, the flight, the lodging with you guys, and then something happens and they get in trouble and the therapeutic recreation community reintegration outing is taken away as a form of punishment. We do not support that, and the chain of command here at the hospital does not support that. But you might encounter that with other organizations. Again, that's the battle of it's not just fun and games, this is therapy. Again, we talked about you're disabled, if you have PTSD, it's an invisible wound. You're disabled, what happened to you? And one of the things they will say, and I already talked about this, is that they wish they had an amputation because then the whole world would know they have a problem. Difficult to break into group and build trust. There's no family, at least that I'm aware of here at the hospital, there's a lack of family education and support, and there's a lack of community programs that support just PTSD, but it's getting better. So thanks to all of you for that. Next, please. We're almost done. This is a huge one, and I hope I don't step on anybody's toes. We find the best agencies in which to work with are those agencies that will listen to the needs of the population, whether it's PTSD, TBI, combat injured. So if you're not listening to what our needs are, or you're not willing to change your existing program because this is the way it's been for years, we won't come out. We won't come out. We get so many things offered to us, which is great, and I don't say that in a flippant way, but we really try to go for the gold standard in when we work with programs, and those programs that best align their goals and mission to our patient needs are the ones that we really enjoy and will continue working with. Just know some days are better than others for this group. All right, hopefully you all learned something. Thank you very much for being part of the webinar.